Good morning, everybody. 17th of April, 2025 at 6:45 in the morning. And I have early classes today, but I thought I would sneak this video out. So, instead of doing it late when I normally would do that when I have late classes, I'll just do this now. And, I've been having a little bit better luck lately where the videos aren't taking 5 hours to upload onto YouTube. Maybe maximum 3 some hours or whatever. And I'm thinking I can sneak this in before my class starts, because as I've mentioned before, that when my cell phone here is uploading a video, I can't use it for anything. Everything, well, almost everything is completely frozen. I can't use the translator to translate words, which I need in class, and it doesn't work if I'm uploading a video from YouTube. And well, one of the big peeves of YouTube is that they freeze it. While they're uploading it, I could be waiting 6 weeks and it'll still be uploading. So they just freeze it completely. I'm not even sure actually how that works. Is that YouTube? Is that something to do with the internet? I don't know. I don't know exactly. But anyway, besides the point. So let's get into some of the news. One thing I wanted to talk about before I do some news is a lot of things like what Zelensky says. The guy's kind of a fascinating character. It doesn't, well, in some people's minds he seems to be contradictory, and his words are contradictory, but his actions don't seem to be contradictory. His words meaning, like I said, he says he's a very honest man, but yet he does a whole bunch of dishonest things. But his actions, for example, if you look at what he said, and I guess I would take his words for being the truth in this instance, he said, when some reporter asked him, what drives him, and he said, for the most part, hatred. He's driven by hatred. And I was kind of interested, well, because you think about that, and you would think people get consumed by hatred. You've heard that expression before, consumed with hatred. But I think in Zelensky's case, it's almost like an exercise, like staying in shape, exercising. It drives him, it gives him a purpose. So, but there's certain people, when you get very old and retired, you don't have a job anymore, your kids or whatever moved out or something like that, those sort of people need a purpose. He's a young guy, he definitely has purposes, so he doesn't really need the hatred. But as I sometimes can think, well, that maybe it can keep people going. But do you realize he's got lots and lots of properties all over the world? Nobody really even knows how many houses and casinos and mines and tourist attractions he owns, or businesses like media businesses and things like that, casinos, wineries. I mean, you just name it. Who knows what the guy's all into? He's when you get flooded with money, as like Donald Trump said, he's the greatest salesman on earth probably that ever lived. Every time he goes somewhere, he comes back with billions of dollars. And as you know how the system works in Ukraine, I've talked about it, many people have talked about it, you don't have to look very deep. How a lot of people shave off a lot of the money. It works in the United States that way too, whether you know it or not, or in a lot of other countries. I have to admit that I've seen that in other countries. For example, they have a commission or an office that they set up to build some major project, say a international airport. And I'm using that example because that's exactly what was happening. So they have this commission, they have an office, and they're paying people very good salaries. I don't know how many people, I didn't know the number, but there are some people getting some very big salaries, to do the planning and figure things out on this airport. And say the airport is already built, 10 years later they still have this office and they're still paying all these people when the airport is already done. And as you see, a lot of this is just done for political favors. Like you're a big supporter of a party, and unfortunately there are some things, and this is absolutely true in a lot of governments' work, like gangsters. And I've seen people and known of instances, and maybe a lot of you out there have as well, but when you do really dastardly things, and even for political parties, it doesn't even have to be the government. Case in point, the Clintons, when you do some very, very terrible things, and you want certain people to keep their hands clean so that it doesn't point to them or doesn't look like them. And of course you have a proxy of a proxy of a proxy, so it's very difficult to trace it back to find out who was actually behind all this and who did the wet work or something, like eliminating people or things like that. And so anyway, it's dirty stuff in politics is mostly what I'm wanting to say. And then, you have, like I said, I was going on in Zelensky and this thing, how his hatred actually keeps him going. I guess it's maybe something, maybe his drive. You got to look at Donald Trump. Well, what drives Donald Trump? And I don't think that it's necessarily money, but money is a sign of success, so that goes right along with Donald Trump's goals and things. And I don't even looking at Elon Musk, I think he doesn't necessarily go for money even as much as Donald Trump. But Zelensky, that is a huge, huge, huge goal in his life. And a lot of these politicians, say the Biden family, Biden, he wants comfort, he wants wealth too, and of course his whole family is like that. And everybody wants to be secure. I'm mostly, even at my age, you get a little bit older, like 24 years old, like me, and you want to have a little bit of security in life. So you it's not like you're driving to become, at least in my case, I don't care to be even a millionaire. Hey, if I tell you what, if I'd be really happy if I had, for example, even adjusted for inflation, not adjusted for inflation. If I had $200,000, I would be happy as anything. What am I going to do with more than that? And you can't take it with you. And if you have children or whatever, I don't, but if you do, you would want them to be self-sufficient and know how to do things on their own. And you would actually be harming their life if you even give them this mindset that they're going to get a huge amount of money to be rich and never have to really work for it. And then they won't appreciate them. I mean, it's you go on and on like that sort of thing. Oh, here comes the police. They're probably going to come and ask what I'm doing over here. Okay, I probably have to shut this down. Or maybe they're not. Maybe they're not. See, if you see in the background here on this small video, they're driving around. Oh, it looks like they maybe are. They're going to ask me what I'm doing. Looks like I'll probably have to shut this off and explain to them what I'm doing here. Maybe not. Maybe they already realize I'm just doing a video. It's not like I'm going to be doing any terrorist attacks or something like that. Maybe I can start into the news. Or maybe they're going to disturb me and say, what the hell are you doing out here? Okay. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say about Zelensky. And I'm kind of nervous now. I should probably go somewhere. Okay. Trump, if I can concentrate. Trump, he is shutting down what's called the GEC, Global Engagement Center. And what that is, it's like a propaganda arm in a way, but it's actually, well, it works as propaganda. Like I said, I can't concentrate so well. It's not really propaganda. It's a censorship thing. And who knows when it started. I guess it started even before Joe Biden time. And it's been expanding all the time. And normally it was, I think to counter information or to stop terrorism or things like that. And then of course it kept expanding more and more. And then of course part of this was the Russia thing, and doing a lot of things to actually whatever administration is in charge, I guess, to censor anybody that's putting out information, mostly media or anything that is counters their information. So I guess it's mostly to support lies. It's like Orwellian. So, and like I said, I don't know. I'm waiting for these guys. Why would the police come here? But they're not saying anything yet. Maybe they're watching me. I don't know. You would think they're going to come out. In the United States, they come out and start bullying you. You guys know how that is. They come swaggering out, and I mean, I've had that a lot of my life, and I've had people I went to school with, and they got beat up, and a lot of them had brain damage, beat up by the police, and they can't live a normal life anymore because they were badly beaten by police for no reason most of the time. Anyway, let's not keep going on with that. Okay, establishment, maybe this is. And I'm thinking maybe that is the reason. Joe Biden came out yesterday and he was, getting messed up. And I guess Trump posted something about Joe Biden, part of his little speech or something, probably getting all messed up. And like he does when he's trying to give speeches. And, oh gosh, like I said, I'm still wondering what these guys are going to do. Let's see. Anyway, Joe Biden coming out, and it's more like a propaganda thing, and he's probably needing some money. Maybe he got paid a lot of money, like the Clintons or Obama. They get huge sums of money to give some kind of a speech or something like that after their presidency. And RFK Jr., I don't know, does this have to do with censorship as well? He's been saying he will have a report put out around September that explains where autism comes from. And actually, I have a lot of belief in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's not a stupid guy, and I think a lot of people are trying to make it look like it's a bunch of hogwash, and but the numbers don't really lie. And like it was, I remember, like in the '60s, it was very, very rare. Say late '60s, when I was a small kid, you never even heard of autism, and with a lot of the chemicals and the additives and things that are going on in the food and in these shots that they put in your arm. I don't know what I'm allowed to say on YouTube, so I can't really get too much into this, but they believe that a lot of that is what's causing so many people to get autism, and I guess that's it's 1 out of every 31, I guess you'd say, people get autism, and a lot of these people, they can't even function at all in life because some of it is very severe. So I don't even want to get into that. But like I said, it was 1 in 10,000, I guess, in the '60s, and then it's 1 in every 31. Okay, another thing, I wanted to talk about Zelensky. This was actually one of the main points of what I was going to talk about today, as well as this is going to be a lot about Zelensky. He came out in a rant, as I just mentioned, that he said he is driven by hatred, and that keeps him going. It really makes you wonder, the United States think they're going to really deal with this guy? And is this the kind of guy that uses his emotions to make his policies in the country, his foreign policy? Maybe it's a lot like Netanyahu. I always like to compare those two. Okay, he came out with a rant, and he was calling the Russians, and this is mostly based on what happened in Sumy, and as you know, this is a false flag propaganda event, even though the event did happen. But Ukraine, they stage military events amongst civilians and on the, we would say on the economy instead of on military bases. And so they have it right out in the open, and they invite families and children and all that to come, where there's large amounts of military people. And I mentioned a lot that yesterday. I think it was like the 117th Territorial Brigade or something that was having award ceremonies, and I think a certain small amount of civilians, small, very small, less than 10, I believe, were killed, and I think some of them were children, and at least they were casualties or injured at least. I don't know exactly, but the vast majority of them, of course, were military people, and it was like over 60 military people were killed. And then Zelensky trying to put out a lot of this fake news and saying it was only civilians, and Russia just bombed a street, and any Ukrainian people's governors or anything like that, which they have come out and said it, and a lot of the Ukrainian people know this, that definitely there was a military event there, and Zelensky's trying to put out fake news that Russia killed, there was no military, and Russia just tried to kill some civilians. So but he's coming out in this rant, and that's one reason why he's calling them the scum of the earth. He's getting his green shirts out there, and he says he has every right to make sure Russians never live in peace. And I guess he's making excuses for his constant bombing of civilians, apartment buildings, and who knows what not, like that. So he said he's saying he's going to continue bombing and killing civilians, and to disobey the ceasefire. In other words, just to be a guy that doesn't have any honor whatsoever. But he's an honest man. He said, a very honest man. And he wants to, of course, wipe out the species. He hates the species, which he calls the Russian people. And you got to deal with this guy. Yeah, I was going to also mention, a lot of you people probably don't get a lot of this news in the West, and what I should do is put up some of these videos. And of course he's talking in, I don't know if he's talking in Russian. He had to learn Ukrainian because he only spoke Russian before. And I don't know what language he's talking about, but I should be putting these up and showing you guys. I don't know, maybe YouTube would take it down because they sometimes have a certain aversion to certain truths. But he's actually trying to say there will never be peace, and he's never going to ever give up these territories that Russia took over. So he wants to continue this, obviously. And like Russia said, one of their goals is to get rid of Nazism, and of course that's never going to happen. And even if you get rid of Zelensky, there's going to be somebody else there. And he said the only thing that's going to stop this is when Russia realizes, in so many words, he said this again, the superiority of the Ukraine. And yeah, he'll keep going after civilians. And Zelensky has a big edge. He has a lot of control for some odd reason over the press, and a lot of these things that happen, these bombings of the stuff, it never gets reported in the West, and even Trump doesn't pay attention to it. Remember, they were bombing the Donbass. They killed, I think it was like 13,000, 14,000 people, in an 8-year time, and yeah, everybody just ignored that in the press. And yesterday they bombed. It was 7 attacks on infrastructure. They bombed one apartment building, and they did kill some people there. And Zelensky came up with a deal for Trump, 50 billion. I don't know, 50 billion. Does that mean he's going to give cash? So Zelensky's always asking for cash, but he wants to pay 50 billion, which of course he probably doesn't. Oh no, that's right. I read it later in a different article. This 50 billion is supposed to be coming from frozen Russian assets from Europe that Europe will give to Zelensky, which of course will be 100 billion, and he'll give 50 billion of it to Trump for more weapons. He wanted a lot of Patriot systems, all that to continue the war as much as possible. Trump declined. He knows he's trying to stop the war, and it would give him a bad look. Anyway, and Treasury Secretary, which I used to like, maybe I kind of do. I have no idea. Besant, he said that the United States is going to continue using maximum pressure on Iran to destroy Iran's economy. And Netanyahu is coming out and saying something like that. And I think Trump even said it's not true, or somebody in the Trump administration, that the United States is going to bomb to complete oblivion all of Iran's nuclear reactors that are, for peaceful purposes, for like nuclear power, I guess. And Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, he came out and said, remember, he's the same guy that said that Ukraine will never be in NATO. Well, now he's saying that the path to NATO for Ukraine is irreversible. So in other words, that they're going to be going, these guys, they change their opinions like they change their underwear. Provided that they do change their underwear, I would think so. Unless they're going to throw it at Zelensky, like Macron and Ursula von der Leyen and all those people do. And Israel, terribly, 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 they keep on bombing Gaza. Last night, they bombed a refugee camp of tents and killed a lot of people, a lot of children, and the footage is really always very, very terrible. Like, I don't even want to describe it because you guys don't want to hear about it. And apparently, I don't know, I saw one report that said they're going to stop all aid to Gaza, the Israelis. What that's all about, I have no idea. Okay, that attack had over 15 dead. Lots of them, most of them are children and women. Yes. And they said that was a humanitarian zone. The Israelis herded those people there. They told them to go there. They go there and then they bomb them. That's just par for the course. They constantly do that. They herd them to different places and they bomb them. Very nice people. And it's strange that we're all sitting around and accepting that. Yeah. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to say is there was one person, you already know him, most of you, is Jean-Claude Van Damme, kickboxer movie and all that sort of stuff. And I guess a while ago, maybe it was a year ago, I don't know, he was coming out, Slava Ukraina, Slava Ukraina. And now he is asking Trump to be not Trump, excuse me. He asks Putin to assign him as an envoy of peace. And a lot of people would say that's, I don't know, maybe it's flip-flopping, but maybe he's found out the truth. So I'm not going to actually attack Jean-Claude Van Damme for that. So a lot of people rag on him, like Steven Seagal and all that. I don't know, I'm not going to do that. But anyway, well, let's see what happens. I don't know if he's going to be made an envoy of peace between Ukraine and Russia. He said he really, really wants it. Well, let's find out. Okay, maybe I'll have to talk to these gentlemen over here. And I don't know, I'm not putting them on the film. Maybe their car right over there. When I walk by there, they'll probably want to speak with me. Maybe, we'll find out. I won't film it. I'll let you guys know. You have to go to the next video. I have to subscribe, put a like, and go to the next video, and I'll tell you if they do stop me and want to talk to me. And, well, until then, luckily this is not a very long video. I can upload it hopefully in time before my class starts. And thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.